Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to contribute to this motion, which, in my view, requires a complete transformation and complex policy shift from the current one, Mr. Speaker. And when we talk about a comprehensive transformational policy shift, remember that it's got pros and cons. The questions that we must ask, Mr. Speaker, is that since this program was started, to be able to absorb interns into permanent jobs. Because the question, Mr. Speaker, here for me is not about the benefits. I've read the motion as presented by the distinguished senator from Nandi, but for me, the question is not about an internship program. It is about what happened after these qualified Kenyans, who the courts in this country have actually ruled that if an intern is performing a task which is aligned to their skills, they must be treated as employees and must be protected by the law. So, Mr. Speaker, the question then begs, what do we need to do? What policy shift do we need to adopt as a country in order to be able to ensure that future generation or the younger generation are taken into consideration, are provided with job opportunities? The first question we ask is that since this program began, how has the public service been able to absorb? How many people has it been able to absorb? How many interns have they been able to place in all government ministries? And the answer is very simple, Mr. Speaker. Every year, the public service, the Ministry of Public Service, absorb about 3,000 to 3,500 interns and place them in all government ministries. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it was only in 2023, or I think maybe 2024, that the ministry absorbed about 8,000 interns and placed them into different government ministries. When you look at the level or the percentage, it was only about 7.71%, and now the ministry has moved to about 8%. Is that really having a solution? No, it is not. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to think seriously. I've listened to my colleague, Mofire, coming in with a very good proposal. And the proposal that Mofire has brought is that Mr. Distinguished Senator Cherargei, this motion will end up in a dustbin. It is not going to be anything unless we come up with a legislation that guarantees interns jobs. You know, you're talking about increasing their benefits, but in fact, you're not even looking at the entire welfare. You're only talking about them receiving 15,000 to 30,000 shillings. What about paternal leave? What about maternity leave? What about sick leave? Those are some of the things. What about innovation benefit? Those are some of the things that we need to do. And that is why I began my arguments this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, by saying that what we need is a complex, transformative policy shift in how we deal with these interns. I have a few proposals, Mr. Speaker, which I hope that the distinguished senator will be able to note thoroughly and ensure that this motion does not remain as a motion, but it is transformed into a piece of legislation. And by then, I would hope that this House will have all the 24 delegations so that we can move. Because, Mr. Speaker, what I'm witnessing here, I never witnessed in the last parliament. I want to be very candid. In the last parliament, our side and the other side would be empty during the end of the term. But now it seems everybody is busy out there trying to figure out, and it's very difficult. If you look at the order paper, Mr. Speaker, we have so many bills and we cannot be able to pass them. The proposal that I want to put on this motion are as follows, Mr. Speaker. Currently, and I hope the distinguished senator will give me an ear, and my colleagues would listen to this. Currently, the Kenyan government has proposed a tax incentive to the private sector, where the government will give a rebate of up to 50% of the salaries paid to private companies that are providing internships to young students, young Kenyans who are graduating. That is the path that we need to take, Mr. Speaker. Government will not be able to solve this problem. There is no African country that has absorbed all interns. It is not possible. The government is not an employment bureau. The government should make it easy, should create an enabling environment for the private sector to be able to create jobs. So, Mr. Speaker, one of my proposals would be that the distinguished Senator Cherargei from Nandi County should not only look at a review of the guidelines of the public service, but to propose a complex transformation of the policy on interns to guarantee jobs. And that way, the only way that the private sector will be able to play ball is if the government comes in with a tax incentive. Let's say, currently there's this program, I hope people know. If a company employs up to 10 interns, takes in 10 interns, they can receive up to 50% rebate on the salaries that they pay. We need to be able to encourage. You know, Mr. Speaker, the day I become president of this country, and that day will come, is a day when we'll be able to practice what we preach. Because today we don't practice what we preach. We preach and preach and preach and forget that yesterday we said A, B, C, D. We have to scan our horizon, our current horizon, to see what is going wrong. Come up with scenarios, build scenarios, and ask ourselves, what if we did this? And the scenario that I want us to build here today, Mr. Speaker, is what if the Ministry of Treasury comes out there during the budget days and reading the budget and says that private sector, you will receive a tax rebate if you employ or if you take in interns to be able to end unemployment. What will happen? Mr. Speaker, this is not quantum physics. The first answer would end unemployment in this country, would reduce unemployed youth who are running around in this country. I was listening to Morfire, and Senator Morfire, Mr. Speaker, if you listen to Senator Morfire, he was actually speaking sense. He said that because of challenges that a lot of youth are facing in this country, they become innovative. They become hackers. They are able to get into your account and continue living a good life. You're working your butt off. And then by the time you go home, you think you have so much money. But because they're unemployed there, they use their skills to be able to get some money for them to continue living their life. So, Mr. Speaker, there are so many things that we talk about in this country, but if the day we practice what we preach is the day that we will see this country change. Yes, we come up with new innovations, but we are not rewarded. Yes, the government come up with programs that gives youth 50,000 shillings to start a job. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to equate that to what the former senator from Kiambu County did when one day he had one of his empowerment program and he donated pigs to people. Those pigs, instead of being used to multiply, those who received them slaughtered them and they had food for a week. So what if you give a youth 50,000 shillings today? You know, they might decide, I'll eat this a little bit. Maybe I'm used to eating 5,000 a month. Maybe I'll eat this for 10 months and I'll survive. This is a big challenge, Mr. Speaker. And this is a challenge that all of us here individually and collectively must sit down and critically think about solutions. Mr. Speaker, I'm currently grappling with a very complex issue where I have 100 students who I'm sponsoring at the university in Masai Mara. And I'm just saying to myself, once these students graduate, what am I going to do with them? If I give them some small seed capital, will it help them? If I place them on internships, will they be able to end up getting jobs? Or will I have just wasted my money and other partners' money to be able to educate these youth? That is one of the biggest problems that I'm having at the moment. And when I see this motion, the only thing that I can think about, Mr. Speaker, is coming up with a legislation, not a motion, that clearly identify a path to full employment, cognizant of the fact that government is not an employment bureau. Mr. Speaker, as I end, I just want to give some certain statistics which are important. That since 2019, this program has only placed 25,200 interns, an average of about 3,000 to 3,500. The absorption rate has only been about 7%. What happened to the other 93%? Are they wallowing in poverty or in debt? So we need to be alive to the fact that it is very, very, very difficult for the government to be able to absorb all these interns. We must review the guidelines, Mr. Speaker, but not only before we develop a legislation, if we can be able to implement fully, we need to review the guidelines to include the following, Mr. Speaker. One of the concerns that the distinguished senator is having is interns who are in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu. Well, what about those ones who are in hardship regions, Turkana, Narok, Nandi? You know, we need to think thoroughly and critically and think outside the box and say it is now time for us to review this policy and include, number one, sick leave, number two, paternal, number three, maternal leave or maternity, and most importantly, align the interns with their skills so that they can be market ready. That is critical, Mr. Speaker. When we were interns, I worked as an intern at the European Business News in London. And the first thing I did was to make sure that the newsreader who was reading, I would print the news and take the news to the newsreader. During the process, I'll be able to understand how a script is drafted, what is important. I was aligned to my practice, to my career, and I was market ready. So, Mr. Speaker, that is important. It is also important, Mr. Speaker, that once we are reviewing this policy, to develop a standardized recruitment process that is very clear, that it will be able to provide equal opportunities for everyone. There are young people who need just an attachment. Mr. Speaker, just add me 30 seconds, I finish my word. An attachment. This attachment, unless they know you, unless they know the senator, they cannot be able to get. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, but I do hope that Senator Cherargei will take the advice we've given. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Izena Remaratian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise to contribute to the motion by the Honorable Senator for Nandi, Senator Cherargei. Mr. Speaker, as the youth senator, I cannot afford not to put my word across as far as this motion is concerned. And I want to agree with my colleagues that there is a need for a policy change in this country. But even most importantly, there is a need for a shift in mindset. Why do I say this? Mr. Speaker, interns go through a lot, and most of them